All right. Welcome back for another series in our hashtag BKOT. Very excited today to present to our audience. We have Bob Burg, who has over 30 years of experience, and we're going to be talking about the Go-Giver Way. And I think this is very valuable for the accounting industry as we are trying to utilize the resources out there to make the firms more efficient, productive, and can pretty much take on anything in the near future. So, Bob, thanks for your time today. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, my pleasure, Chris. Great to be here. Well, I'm just a guy who started out as a broadcaster, first on radio and television, was not very good at it at all, and I graduated into sales, I like to say. Um, for the first, I'd say 3 or 4 months, I floundered because I had no, experience in sales. I had no formal training. But once I began to study it and realize this is, a long time ago now. This is 40 years ago when I first got into sales, and I started picking up books. And back then it was cassette tapes. That's how long ago this was, and going to seminars, and realized that it was a skill set, and realized that selling, unlike what so many people think about it, that it's trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need. That's not it at all. Great selling is simply discovering what the other person does need, want, and desire, and help them to get it. And so I really got very involved in sales and the personal development aspect, and eventually worked my way up to sales manager of a company, and then began to teaching others what was working for me, and working for those on my team.
Now, the Go-Givers. So, tell me about this. What is the premise for this book here, and what is the meaning?
Yeah, it's a business parable. So it's a short story, basically, co-authored with John David Mann, who's a fantastic writer and storyteller. I'm much more of a how-to guy. I'm step one, step two, step three. So I'm the boring one. John's a great storyteller. And it's a story about a guy named Joe, who is that sort of young, up and coming, ambitious, aggressive, but very frustrated business person, because his focus was on the wrong place. And what the Go-Giver really is all about is understanding that shifting your focus, and this is really where it all begins, Chris, shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more pleasant and fulfilling way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some, woo-woo, way out there kind of magical, mystical reason, but for very logical, rational reasons. When you're that person who can move your focus off yourself and onto serving others, helping them overcome their problems and challenges, helping them get closer to happiness, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in a relationship with you. They want to do business with you, and they want to spread the word and tell others about you.
I couldn't agree more with that. If they like you, they trust you, and they trust you, product, service, whatever it may be, they will definitely buy in. And that's important. You may know everything about your product or service inside and out, but
Right.
if the person don't like you, it could be the best product in the world.
Right.
They're not going to
Yeah.
work with you
Yeah.
whatsoever.
And if they don't
Now,
trust you in terms of both, competence and character,
yeah.
there's also an issue, so it really is that kind of full, that full idea. They need to either know you or at least know who you are. And that's where referrals come into play, of course. And then as you said, the like is so important. And then the trust factor. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Sometimes clients, when working with them, they'll out of nowhere they just they start interviewing me and asking what have I done, how long I worked for the company, what do I like to do outside of work, and I'm like, what? Wait, what's going on? But I appreciate that they're wanting to get to know me on a personal level, which will make them feel more comfortable.
Mhm.
Um, Now you mentioned in the book about 5 laws. So can you share some insight into these 5 laws here?
Sure. So the five laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The first one's the law of value, and this says that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear this, it sounds a bit counterintuitive. Give more in value than I take in payment. That kind of sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. So it's simply understanding the difference between price and value. Price being a dollar figure, a dollar amount. It's finite. It simply is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. And we can, we can take the example of someone who hires that CPA to do their taxes. Okay. And this practitioner charges, and we'll just name a round figure, $1,000 to do that person's taxes. That's their fee or their price. But what value are they giving their client in exchange for this? Well, through getting to know that person, their business, their situation, their desires, what they're looking to accomplish, through all this and their years of experience, they're able to save that person, let's say, $5,000 in taxes. They also save them countless hours of time, and they provide them with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So when you think about it, they've given that person well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. They gave them more in value than what they took in payment. So this client feels great about it, and the CPA makes a very healthy profit, which they should. But here's the thing, and I think this is so important. This happened not because our practitioner was focused on the money they were getting, right? They were focused on the immense value they were providing their client. The money was simply the result of this. This is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to values lightning, which means nothing more than that the value to that other person must be the focus. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a natural and direct result of the value you've provided. That's really the law of value in a nutshell.
So I think that's very important, because if especially as firms are trying to kind of transform themselves into this new age, and thinking about how to present, rather than charging for an hourly base, more value-based pricing. And I think it's important to understand that. And sometimes they're a little bit nervous to move over into that type of price. I think then they'll lose clients. But what you said is spot on, that it doesn't matter about the price, as long as the end user, the client, feels that they're getting what they're paying for, they'll be willing to pay more. And so
Sure.
focus on that so much.
Yeah.
And
value is always in the eyes of the beholder. So it's always a matter of looking at what they see as being of value. It's not what we think is of value or what we think they should think is. And that's why the discovery aspect is so very important when talking to a potential client. We've really got to be able to, we've got to be able to understand that we all see the world through our own unique set of eyes, our own unique model of the world, if you will. And we tend to think others see it basically the same way we do. And it's not true. They don't. So it's really up to us to ask questions and really be able to listen.
now, also, throughout the book, one of the principles you mentioned is influence.
Yeah.
So, how does someone create influence within themselves and also within their firm, in this instance, or their business? And so, can you talk a little bit on that?
So The law of influence, and that's law 3, says that your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, counterintuitive sounding, counterproductive at best, and maybe even Pollyanna-ish at worst, right? And yet you think about it, the greatest leaders, the top influencers, the most successful rainmakers, right? The highest producing money earner. This is how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. They're always looking out for the other person's interest. Now, let me clarify that for a moment and qualify that. When we say place the other person's interest first, we certainly don't mean you should be anyone's doormat. Not at all. And you should not be a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Absolutely not at all. It simply is Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors. And as we talked about a bit earlier, the golden rule of business is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Now, here's the thing, Chris, there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you in others, from others, than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus, looking for ways, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, making your win all about the other person's win. And interestingly, we can start during our first conversation with someone. So let's say you're a CPA who is attending a party, a social function, or it could be a business mixer, or it could be a charitable event, and you meet someone there. These are great places to network, but sometimes CPAs who do such a wonderful job at what they're doing, they're loath to feel as though they're trying to drum up business or network. Well, let's look at networking though a little differently. Okay, networking is simply the cultivating of mutually beneficial give and take, or give and receive, win-win relationships. The focus is on the give part. So when you're looking to give value to another person, it's something that other person's always going to feel very comfortable about and very much respect. So when we're talking about giving value here, we're not talking in terms of your profession. We're talking in terms of just establishing a relationship with someone, and doing so in a way that, again, we move from an I focus to an other focus. So you meet someone at this charitable event. This person is a sales manager of a copying machine company, and you might, and so they sell copying machines, really high end, really great copying machines. So one way to add value is to focus on them and ask them questions about themselves that they will enjoy answering. I call these feel-good questions because they're not salesy, they're not prospecty, they're not intrusive, they're not invasive. They simply make this person feel genuinely good about themselves, thus about you and about the conversation. And there's no pressure on you, right? Because you're focusing on them. So what if you ask Gary, where the first question is simply, how did you get started selling copying machines? Or a little bit more graceful way might be, how did you get started as an office products professional? Now, this is a question that is so effective because it's not particularly slick or clever, not at all. In fact, it's very mundane, and yet people love answering that question. Why? Because unlike everyone else who immediately is coming in with their elevator speech and trying to sell them their product.
Who's doing your accounting?
Right, exactly. You're instead focused on them, and they appreciate that because they're not asked to share their story, right? Who asked them how they got started? Their own family has never asked them how they got start in the copying machine, right? And here's you, who they just met. Rather than focusing on yourself, you're asking them about themselves. Now, the second question might be something such as, what do you enjoy most about your work? Wow, Gary, you must have had some fascinating experiences. What do you enjoy most about what you do? And again, this flies into the face of so much traditional sales teaching, where we're taught to immediately find their pain, right? There's not even a relationship there, and we're supposed to reach into their heart and tear it out. And so, right? And no, instead, find their joy. Find their joy. What do you enjoy most? It's a feel-good question. It elicits a feel-good response. And then, you've asked a couple of these questions and there's a really nice rapport being established. You feel very comfortable because you're not feeling like you're trying to drum up business and, trying to, right. But this person's feeling very good about you. And they, and then the one key question, this is not one of the fielded questions. It's what I call the one key question that will really separate and distinguish you from the rest. And that is to say something like, so Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a good potential client for you? See, that's a powerful question because the way you're asking, first of all, again, you're communicating value to them. You're letting them know that your focus is on them and you're asking how you can help them in their business and their life. And, the way you ask it, the way you framed it, that person's going to give you an answer that's going to help them to help you. So let's say again, Gary sells copying machines to businesses. Gary, how can I, or a good way to lead into this too, is to say, Gary, I always love connecting good people with other good people. How can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a great potential client for you? Or you could even say something like, among a lot of my clients, there's some fantastic people who might need your services. How can I know if so, right? So the way we frame this, Gary knows we have their best interest at heart. And so, this is a conversation that, again, maybe takes 7 minutes. I mean, it doesn't have to take a long time. And, if he asks you about what you do, great, you can share with them. And if there's some interest, you can always, set up a time to meet. That's fine. But it's probably not going to happen that first time. And it doesn't have to. And that's the key. Make sure you get his business card, which he's going to want to give you because, again, you've offered to refer business his way. If he asks for yours, great, give it to him, but realize he's not going to do anything with your card. This is going to be up to you. And then you're in a position to be able to follow up and follow through. And I'll tell you, the very first thing I would do is I would send a personalized handwritten thank you note. Okay. And it's very simple. And I put mine in an 8.5 by 3-inch note card. It's about 70 to 90 pound card stock. So there's some substance to it. And it's got, your contact information on there. It might have a benefit statement, helping people to blah, 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 whatever. Very, very, very just pithy, but lots of white space to write. Okay. And the note is simply, hi, Gary, or dear Ms. Johnson, or dear Susan, or however the relationship's been established. Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. If I can ever refer business your way, I certainly will. Or if you met at the kids' ball game, it might be, again, hi, Janet, or hi, Steve. Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you at our kids' ball game. I thought your Sally and my Tommy were the two best out there, smiley face, whatever it is. And then put it in a number 10 envelope, handwrite it, put a regular stamp on it, not a meter machine, a regular stamp, and send it. It's going to get there the next day. And this person's going to open it up and immediately the warm, fuzzy feelings come back. And this is so key because what you've said to this person, babe, what you've communicated is, I'm a pro. They see you as, you ask them those great engaging questions. You didn't talk about yourself. You were focused on them. And how often, so we're in a conversation with someone who lets us do all the talking, right? And so, wow, what a great conversationalist that person was. That's that, right? And so there's no pressure on you to do it. You're focused on them. You send that note. And again, it's not that they're going to write back and say, hey, I want to do it, but you're creating that environment. And, then you take the rest of our follow through system and methodology, and you position yourself as that CPA who, when they are ready to, when they need your services, you're the one they're going to call or refer to others. And once you build that know, like, and trust, you can contact them. And so, and there's many ways to do it, but that's just one way of immediately communicating value to others by placing their interests first.
I love it. I love the whole idea, even with the handwritten note, that really resonated with me. I'm always a believer that the littlest thing that you do for anybody, whether it's work, colleague, friends, relationship, the littlest thing that you do goes so much further than buying expensive gift or a fancy restaurant or things like that, but it's just the littlest thing. And in effect, and this goes back years ago, as I've been not as long as you, but I've been in sales and marketing for about 16 years in different industries. And I just always find that just the smallest thing, the littlest thing that you do really means the world to somebody.
Yeah.
And this helps you, especially when firms are managing different teams. I mean, there's all sorts of different people, all sorts of different personalities, and everybody's managed a different way. And so you can't just do a templated approach to managing these folks. And so I always found that, having individual meetings with each of them, you have your general meeting, but then you have individual meetings, and you're able to find out a lot more. And whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes talking with them, just that having an hour-long meeting with the group, right? It's okay. But having that 5-10 minute one-on-one conversation means the world to these folks is what I've seen. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you. Now, you obviously know what you're talking about and you're sharing some great ideas. So for you, what one piece of advice that you received before even knowing what meaning to be a go-giver was, that was a difference maker with you?
Well, that's a great question. And there was actually a time I'd been in sales for a couple of years and again, had been doing pretty well because I had been learning it and studying it. And then I went to another company, Chris, and I was selling a high-end product and I was in a slump right from the beginning. And as I was trying to get out of the slump, I did this, sort of young salesperson mistake. And that is I focused more on myself and the slump and how am I going to get out of the slump and me, as opposed to the focus being on my customers. And I remember coming back to the office one day after a sales presentation that again failed, didn't happen. And one of the people there, who's an older guy, who he was not even in the sales department. I think he was in the engineering department, and he retired soon after. I didn't know him well, but he was one of these guys who, he was a nice guy. He didn't say much, but whenever he did say something, it was typically very profound. And he must have seen me as Joe, like the protege in the story I would write about with John David Mann 25 years later or whatever, because he said to me, Burg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, a lot of money in business, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget the target. The money is simply the reward for hitting the target, right? It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others. And, Chris, I think what that really told me was that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson, right? Great salesmanship is never about the product or service itself, as we were talking about earlier, right? Great salesmanship is really about the other person. It's about adding value to the life of that other individual. And I guess really we could say it's about another person's life being better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we approach business that way, regardless of our profession, I think then we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
I love it. Yeah, no, and so that moment right there really resonated with you, and you're able to hopefully you started getting out of that slump.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the idea is that it's just sometimes I think we just all focus on the wrong things and don't realize, or sometimes even complicating the heck out of things when we just go down to the root cause, the root value. It's so simple, but sometimes we just complicate it. And I like the fact that you're just taking a step back and looking at it in a different way. It's very important to do that. Well, I can talk to you for the next hour and a half if I had some time. I really appreciate you sharing this insight. And before we wrap up, though, any final thoughts to share with our audience?
No, I mean, I think it really comes down to just understanding that no one's going to do business with you or with me because, you want the business or I want the business. They're going to do business with us because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And I think that's great because it means that those professionals who can truly focus on the other person's interests, that's the person who's going to have the most lucrative practice.
Yeah, spot on. As folks are moving over from, on the compliance side and doing the advisory side, today you provided some awesome insight. Folks, check it out. Go Giver, over 1 million copies sold. Great little story right here. Bob, again, thank you so much for taking time out. Like I said, we could talk here all day, but for now, again, thanks for your time. To our audience, we'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks everyone for listening in. Take care.